The sharp thorns tore at Amara's skin as she crashed through the thick bushes. Blood ran down her arms like tiny rivers, but she couldn't stop running. Behind her, angry voices grew louder and louder. Torches flickered in the darkness, like evil eyes hunting for her. "Find her!" shouted Baba Kofi, the village witch doctor. His voice was deep and scary, like thunder before a storm. "The witch must not escape! She has cursed our children!" Amara's bare feet slapped against the muddy ground. Her heart beat so fast it felt like a drum in her chest. She could hear the footsteps getting closer, much closer. The men from her village were strong and fast. They knew these forests better than anyone. A tree branch smacked her face hard. Stars danced in front of her eyes, but she kept running. She had to. If they caught her, they would drag her back to the village square. They would tie her to the big baobab tree. And then, she didn't want to think about what would happen then. "There, I see her," someone yelled. Amara looked back and saw the orange glow of torches through the trees. The light was getting brighter. They were almost on top of her now. Her legs felt like they were made of heavy stones. Her lungs burned with each breath. She stumbled and fell hard onto her knees. Sharp rocks cut into her skin. For a moment, she wanted to give up. She wanted to lie down right there and let them take her. She was so tired, so scared. But then she remembered little Kessie's face. Sweet, innocent Kessie with her big brown eyes and gap-toothed smile. The same Kessie who was now lying sick in bed, burning with fever. The same fever that had taken 3 other children in the past week. And Baba Kofi said it was all Amara's fault. The witch doctor had pointed his long, bony finger at her in front of the whole village. His eyes were wild and crazy. Bones and feathers hung from his neck like a necklace of death. When he spoke, everyone listened. Even the village chief bowed his head. "This woman has brought evil spirits to our village," Baba Kofi had screamed. His voice echoed off the mud huts. "She walks alone at night. She talks to herself. She makes strange medicines from plants. The spirits whisper to her, and now our children pay the price." Amara had tried to explain. She told them she was just trying to help. She knew about plants and herbs because her grandmother had taught her. The strange medicines were just teas to help sick people feel better. She walked alone because she liked the quiet. She talked to herself because she was lonely. But nobody believed her. Fear had taken over their hearts like a poison. Now, as she knelt on the forest floor with her hands bleeding and her dress torn, Amara could hear them getting closer. The voices were so close she could make out individual words. "She went this way. Don't let her reach the river. If she crosses the water, we'll lose her." The river! Amara had forgotten about the river. If she could reach it, she might have a chance. The current was strong this time of year. Maybe she could swim across. The men from her village were afraid of deep water at night. They believed water spirits lived there. She pushed herself up from the ground. Her knees wobbled like a baby learning to walk, but she forced them to hold her weight. She could smell the river now. That fresh, muddy smell that meant water was nearby. 20 more steps. That's all she needed. 15 steps. 10 steps. 5 steps. She burst through the last line of bushes and saw the dark water flowing in front of her. It looked black as ink under the cloudy sky. The river was wider than she remembered, much wider, and the current looked angry and fast, but she had no choice. Amara took a deep breath and stepped toward the water's edge. The mud was slippery under her feet. She could hear the men crashing through the bushes behind her now. Any second, they would break through and see her. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to her grandmother's spirit. "Please help me, Grandmama. I'm not a witch. I'm just trying to survive." Just as her toes touched the cold river water, a hand grabbed her shoulder. "Don't scream," whispered a voice in her ear. "I'm here to help you." Amara spun around, her heart nearly jumping out of her chest. She expected to see one of the angry villagers. Instead, she found herself looking at a boy about her own age. He had kind eyes and wore the simple clothes of a farmer's son. "Taiwo," she gasped. She knew this boy. He was the son of Mama Folake, who sold yams in the market. But what was he doing here? "Shh!" Taiwo put his finger to his lips. "They're almost here. Quick, this way." He grabbed her hand and pulled her away from the river toward a thick patch of tall grass. Amara wanted to ask questions, but the voices behind them were getting louder. She had no choice but to trust him. They crawled on their hands and knees through the grass. The blades were sharp and cut at their faces, but they moved as quietly as mice. Behind them, the torches broke through the bushes. "She was here!" shouted one of the men. "I can see her footprints in the mud." "Check the river," ordered Baba Kofi. "If she crossed, we'll follow her to the other side." Amara and Taiwo lay flat on their bellies in the grass, barely breathing. The torchlight swept back and forth above their heads like angry fireflies. They could hear the men splashing in the shallow water at the river's edge. "The footprints stop here," said another voice. "Maybe she went into the water. Or maybe she turned back," Baba Kofi said slowly. His voice was cold and calculating. "Spread out. Search every bush, every tree, every blade of grass. The witch is here somewhere." Amara's blood turned to ice. If they searched everywhere, they would surely find them. She looked at Taiwo with wide, frightened eyes. He squeezed her hand and pointed deeper into the grass. They crawled forward inch by inch. Every small sound seemed as loud as thunder. When Amara's elbow hit a stick, the crack echoed in her ears like a gunshot, but the men were making too much noise to hear them. After what felt like hours, they reached the other side of the grass patch. Taiwo carefully lifted his head and looked around. Then he motioned for Amara to follow him. They crept through the forest like shadows. Taiwo seemed to know exactly where he was going. He led her around fallen logs, through small streams, and under low-hanging branches, always away from the voices and the torchlight. Finally, they reached a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. The sound of falling water would cover their voices. Taiwo pulled aside some hanging vines, and they slipped inside. The cave was small but dry. Someone had been here before. There were old blankets on the ground and dried fish hanging from the ceiling. A small fire pit sat in the center, though no fire burned now. "You can rest here," Taiwo said softly. "They won't find this place." Amara collapsed onto one of the blankets. Her whole body was shaking, not just from cold but from fear and shock. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Taiwo sat down across from her. In the dim light coming through the waterfall, his face looked serious and sad. "Because I know you're not a witch," he said simply. "How can you be sure? Everyone else believes Baba Kofi." "My little sister was one of the sick children," Taiwo explained. "She got the fever 2 days ago, but yesterday she started getting better. You know why?" Amara shook her head. "Because my mother gave her some of that special tea you made, the one you gave to Mama Aduni for her baby last month. My mother saved some of it just in case." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Your sister is better?" Much better. The fever broke yesterday night. She was sitting up and asking for food this morning. Taiwo leaned forward. If you were really a witch bringing evil spirits, would your medicine make children healthy again? For the first time in days, Amara felt a tiny spark of hope. But then she remembered the other children who were still sick. What about little Kessie and the others? Taiwo's face grew dark. That's the problem. Baba Kofi threw away all your medicines. He said they were cursed. He made people pour them out in the dirt. But those medicines could help the children. I know. That's why we have to do something. Amara stared at him. We? Taiwo, if they catch you helping me, they'll say you're working with a witch. They might hurt you too. Let them try, Taiwo said firmly. My grandmother always told me to help people in trouble. She said that's what makes us human. Outside the cave, they could hear the search party moving farther away. The angry voices were getting fainter, but Amara knew they would be back. Baba Kofi was not the kind of man who gave up easily. I have to leave this place, she said. I have to go far away where they can't find me. No, Taiwo said suddenly. That's exactly what Baba Kofi wants. What do you mean? Taiwo stood up and began pacing back and forth in the small cave. Think about it. You're the only person in the village who knows how to make the medicines that actually work. If you run away, the children will die. And then Baba Kofi can say it's because the witch escaped before he could stop her curse. Amara felt sick to her stomach. So either way he wins. Only if we let him. Taiwo's eyes gleamed with determination. But what if we could prove that you're not a witch? What if we could show everyone that your medicines help people instead of hurting them? How could we possibly do that? No one will listen to us. Taiwo smiled for the first time since they'd met in the forest. I have an idea, but it's dangerous. Very dangerous. Before Amara could ask what he meant, they heard voices outside the cave. Close voices. The search party had come back. Check behind that waterfall, Baba Kofi commanded. Witches like to hide in dark, wet places. Amara and Taiwo looked at each other in terror. Heavy footsteps splashed through the water toward their hiding place. This way, Taiwo whispered urgently. He grabbed Amara's hand and pulled her toward the back of the cave. Amara couldn't see anything in the darkness, but she felt Taiwo's hands pushing against what seemed like solid rock. Suddenly, the rock moved. It was actually a heavy stone that could slide to one side. My grandfather showed me this place when I was little, Taiwo whispered as they squeezed through the narrow opening. He used to hide here during the old wars. Behind them, they could hear the vines at the cave entrance rustling. Torchlight flickered against the cave walls. Empty, called out one of the searchers. Just old blankets and fish. Look more carefully, Baba Kofi's voice echoed in the cave. The witch is clever. She might be hiding somewhere we can't see. Amara and Taiwo found themselves in a narrow tunnel that led deeper into the mountain. They crawled forward in complete darkness, feeling their way along the rough walls. Behind them, the stone entrance had slid shut again, looking just like part of the cave wall. The tunnel was so narrow they had to move on their hands and knees. Sharp rocks scraped their skin and spiderwebs stuck to their faces. But they kept crawling forward, driven by the fear of what would happen if Baba Kofi found them. After what felt like forever, they saw a tiny spot of light ahead. The tunnel was leading them somewhere, but where? They crawled faster now, desperate to reach that light. When they finally emerged, Amara gasped in surprise. They were in the old burial ground behind the village. Ancient graves dotted the hillside, marked by withered stones and twisted trees. "Perfect," Taiwo said, brushing dirt from his clothes. "No one will look for us here. People are too scared of the spirits." Amara looked around nervously. Even she felt uncomfortable in this place. The burial ground was where the village elders had been laid to rest for hundreds of years. Stories said their spirits still watched over the village. "Now," Taiwo said, sitting down on a fallen log, "let me tell you my plan." "I'm listening," Amara said, though part of her wished she could just keep running and never stop. "The problem is that people are afraid," Taiwo began. "Baba Kofi has filled their hearts with fear, and scared people don't think clearly. They just want someone to blame. So how do we change that? We prove that you can heal, not curse. But we have to do it in a way that even Baba Kofi can't argue with." Taiwo's eyes gleamed in the moonlight. "Tomorrow is the festival of ancestors. Everyone in the village will gather here in this very burial ground to honor the spirits of the dead." Amara felt a chill run down her spine. "You want me to come back to the village? Tomorrow? That's crazy. They'll catch me for sure." "Not if we're smart about it," Taiwo said. "Listen to the whole plan first." He leaned forward, speaking in hushed tones. "During the festival, people bring offerings to their ancestors' graves. They light candles and burn incense. There's always a lot of smoke and confusion. Okay, what if, during all that confusion, the sick children suddenly started getting better? What if they found special medicine bottles sitting on their ancestors' graves, like gifts from the spirit world?" Amara's eyes widened. "You want me to make more medicine and leave it on the graves?" "Exactly. But here's the clever part. We'll use plants that only grow in this burial ground. Plants that everyone knows are sacred to the ancestors. If the medicine works, people will think the spirits themselves sent it." For a moment, Amara felt excited. It was a brilliant plan. But then reality crashed down on her like a cold wave. "Taiwo, I don't have any tools to make medicine. No grinding stones, no cooking pots, nothing. And even if I did, how would we get the medicine to the children without being seen?" Taiwo grinned. "I already thought of that. My mother has been secretly making medicine using your grandmother's old recipes. She's been practicing in case you ever came back. Your mother knows about this plan? She's the one who suggested it. She said if we're going to fight lies, we need to fight them with truth." Amara felt tears in her eyes. She had been so alone, so scared. But now she had allies, people who believed in her. "There's something else," Taiwo continued, "something that might help us even more." "What?" "Old Baba Tunde is dying." Amara's heart sank. Baba Tunde was the oldest man in the village. He had been kind to her when she was growing up. His wife always bought her grandmother's medicines. "He's been sick for weeks," Taiwo explained. "The same fever that's been taking the children. But he's old, so it's hitting him harder. His family thinks he might not last another day." "That's terrible. But how does it help us?" "Because everyone loves Baba Tunde. Even Baba Kofi respects him. If we could save his life with your medicine, if people saw him get better after drinking something left by the ancestors," Amara understood now. "They would have to believe the spirits approved of the medicine. And if the spirits approved, then I couldn't be a witch." "Exactly. Witches serve evil spirits. Good spirits would never help a real witch save people's lives." It was risky. So risky that Amara's hands shook just thinking about it. If they were caught, both she and Taiwo would be in terrible danger. And his mother too. But if they did nothing, the children would die. Babatunde would die. And she would spend the rest of her life running and hiding. "All right," she said finally, "let's do it." Taiwo smiled and clasped her hands. "We'll start tonight. There are healing plants growing right here among the graves. Plants my mother needs to finish the medicines." They stood up and began searching the burial ground by moonlight. But as they knelt beside the first grave to pick medicinal herbs, Amara heard a sound that made her blood freeze. It was the sound of someone clapping. Slow, mocking claps echoing through the graveyard. They turned around and saw a tall figure standing between the tombstones. Even in the darkness, they could see the bones and feathers hanging around his neck. Baba Kofi stepped into the moonlight, his eyes glowing with triumph. "So," he said, his voice dripping with evil satisfaction, "the little witch thinks she can hide among the dead. How appropriate." Amara's legs felt like water. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. Baba Kofi stood directly in their path back to the tunnel. Behind them was only the steep cliff that dropped down to the river far below. "Don't move," Baba Kofi commanded, pulling out a curved knife that gleamed in the moonlight. "I've been hunting you all night, witch, and now I've found you poisoning our sacred burial ground with your evil presence." "She's not a witch." Taiwo stepped protectively in front of Amara. His voice shook, but he stood firm. "She's trying to help people." Baba Kofi laughed, a cold sound that echoed off the tombstones. "Help people? Is that what you call cursing our children with fever?" "The children got sick before anyone blamed Amara," Taiwo shot back, "and your medicines haven't helped them at all." The witch doctor's eyes flashed with anger. "Foolish boy, you don't understand the spirit world like I do. Sometimes good spirits must fight evil ones. The children suffer because this witch brought darkness to our village." Amara found her voice at last. "That's not true. I've only ever tried to heal people. My grandmother taught me to use plants to help, not hurt." "Your grandmother was a witch too," Baba Kofi snarled. "I should have dealt with her years ago, but I was too merciful. I won't make that mistake with you." He stepped closer, raising the knife. But as he moved, something strange happened. The witch doctor stumbled slightly, as if he was dizzy. He put one hand against a tombstone to steady himself. In the moonlight, Amara could see something she hadn't noticed before. Baba Kofi's skin looked pale and sweaty. His breathing was shallow and quick. "You're sick," she whispered in shock. "What?" Baba Kofi straightened up quickly, trying to hide his weakness. "You have the fever too, the same fever as the children." Amara's mind raced. "That's why you're so desperate to blame someone. You're scared." "I am not sick," Baba Kofi shouted. But even as he said it, he swayed on his feet again. Taiwo stared at the witch doctor with new understanding. "She's right. You do look sick. When did it start?" "Silence." Baba Kofi raised the knife higher, but the effort seemed to exhaust him. "I am protected by powerful spirits. No curse can touch me." "Then why are you sweating?" Amara asked gently. "Why are your hands shaking?" Baba Kofi looked down at his hands. They were indeed trembling, though whether from fever or fear, it was hard to tell. This is your doing," he said. But his voice had lost some of its power. "You cursed me when you ran away." "I never cursed anyone," Amara said, taking a small step forward. "But I can help you. The same way I helped Taiwo's sister. The same way I could help all the sick children if you'd let me." "No." Baba Kofi backed away from her. You're trying to trick me. Your help is poison. Then why did Taiwo's sister get better after drinking my medicine? The witch doctor's eyes went wide. What? Taiwo nodded. It's true. She was dying yesterday. Today she's running around playing with her friends. For a moment, Baba Kofi just stared at them. His face went through a range of emotions: surprise, confusion, fear, and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. That's impossible, he whispered. It's not impossible, Amara said softly. It's just medicine, real medicine made from plants that actually work. She could see the internal battle playing out on Baba Kofi's face. Everything he had built his power on was being questioned. If Amara could really heal people, then what did that make him? You don't understand, he said finally, his voice much quieter now. I've been the village healer for 20 years. People come to me when they're sick or scared. They depend on me. They can still depend on you, Amara said. But maybe we could work together instead of fighting each other. Baba Kofi let out a bitter laugh. Work together? After I've called you a witch in front of the whole village? After I've led hunting parties to capture you? They would never trust me again if I admitted I was wrong. So you'd rather let children die than admit you made a mistake? The question hung in the air like a heavy stone. Baba Kofi stared at Amara for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. 3 children have died already. Amara felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. 3? But I thought... Little Kemi died this morning. Olu and Femi died yesterday. Tears began running down the witch doctor's cheeks. I tried everything, all my ceremonies, all my prayers to the spirits. Nothing worked. But you told everyone they died because of my curse. Because I didn't know what else to say. Baba Kofi dropped his knife and sank down onto a fallen log. I'm supposed to be the one who talks to the spirits. I'm supposed to know how to heal people. But I failed. I failed them all. Taiwo and Amara looked at each other in amazement. This was not the powerful, scary witch doctor they had expected to face. This was just a frightened, sick man who had gotten in over his head. It's not too late, Amara said gently. There are still children who can be saved, and you can be saved too. Baba Kofi looked up at her with red, tired eyes. How? Even if your medicine works, how can I explain to the village why I was wrong? How can I tell them I accused an innocent woman? Amara thought for a moment. Then she smiled. Actually, she said, I think we can help each other. What if we told them that the spirits spoke to you tonight? What if we said they revealed the truth to you here in the burial ground? What do you mean? You could say that the ancestors' spirits appeared to you and explained that I'm not a witch, that they showed you I was chosen to be a healer, just like my grandmother. People would believe that. Baba Kofi considered this. And in return? In return, you help us save the children. Tonight, during the Festival of Ancestors, we work together to heal them. And everyone sees that the spirits approve. The witch doctor was quiet for a long time. Around them, the wind rustled through the old trees, almost like whispered voices from the past. Finally, he nodded slowly. All right. But first, he looked at Amara with desperate eyes. Can you really help me? This fever, I can feel it getting worse. Amara knelt down and picked some of the healing herbs growing near the graves. Yes, she said softly, I can help you, but we need to hurry. The festival starts at sunrise and we have a lot of work to do." As she began preparing the medicine, none of them noticed the figure watching from behind a large tombstone. Someone else had followed them to the burial ground, someone who had heard every word of their conversation. The spy crept away silently into the darkness, running toward the village with news that would change everything. The first rays of sunlight painted the sky orange and pink as the village began to wake up. But in the burial ground, Amara, Taiwo, and Baba Kofi had been working all night. They had prepared dozens of small bottles filled with healing medicine, each one carefully labeled with the name of a sick child. Baba Kofi looked much better after drinking Amara's fever medicine. The color had returned to his cheeks, and his hands no longer shook. But they all knew the real test was still to come. "Remember the plan," Amara whispered as they hid the medicine bottles among the graves. "When the families come to honor their ancestors, they'll find these bottles sitting on the tombstones like gifts from the spirit world. And I'll announce that the ancestors spoke to me in a dream," Baba Kofi added. "I'll say they revealed that you were chosen to be a healer, not cursed to be a witch." "Do you think they'll believe it?" Taiwo asked nervously. Before anyone could answer, they heard voices coming up the hill toward the burial ground. The festival of ancestors was beginning. "Quick," Baba Kofi said. "Hide behind the big baobab tree. I'll handle everything." Amara and Taiwo crouched behind the massive tree trunk, their hearts pounding. Through the leaves, they could see families beginning to arrive. Men, women, and children carried flowers, food, and candles to place on their ancestors' graves. But something was wrong. Instead of the usual quiet, respectful atmosphere of the festival, there was an angry buzz in the air. People were talking in loud, upset voices. "Where is she?" shouted a man Amara recognized as Kessie's father. "Where is the witch who killed my daughter?" Amara's heart stopped. Kessie was dead? "She was seen here last night," called out another voice. "Someone saw her poisoning the burial ground with dark magic." The spy had told them everything, but not the truth. A twisted version that made them sound even more guilty. Baba Kofi stepped forward, raising his hands for silence. But instead of listening, the crowd grew angrier. "There he is," someone yelled. "Baba Kofi, why didn't you catch the witch when you had the chance?" "She must have put a spell on you," added another voice. "That's why you let her escape." More and more people poured into the burial ground. They carried torches and farming tools like weapons. At the front of the crowd stood Chief Adebayo, the village leader. His face was dark with anger. "Baba Kofi," the chief said in a voice like thunder, "we trusted you to protect us from evil spirits. But the witch was here in our most sacred place, and you did nothing to stop her." "Wait," Baba Kofi said, trying to stay calm. "Let me explain what really happened." "We know what happened," Chief Adebayo pointed an accusing finger. "Segun saw you talking with the witch like she was your friend. He heard you making plans together." Behind the tree, Amara felt sick with fear. Segun was the village gossip, always sticking his nose where it didn't belong, but he had only heard part of their conversation. And now he was twisting it into something evil. "She cursed you," the chief continued, "just like she cursed our children, and now you're under her spell too." "That's not true," Baba Kofi protested. "The spirits spoke to me last night. They revealed the truth about Amara. She's not a witch, she's a healer." The crowd erupted in angry shouts. "Lies! The witch has poisoned your mind. She's made you her servant." Amara couldn't watch anymore. These people were ready to hurt Baba Kofi just for trying to help her. She couldn't let that happen. Before Taiwo could stop her, she stepped out from behind the tree. "Stop!" she called out. "Don't hurt him. If you want to blame someone, blame me." The crowd turned toward her like a pack of angry wolves. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then everyone started shouting at once. "There she is. Catch her. Don't let her escape again." But Chief Adebayo held up his hand, and slowly the crowd quieted down. He stared at Amara with cold, hard eyes. "So," he said, "the witch comes back to the scene of her crimes. Do you have any last words before we deal with you once and for all?" Amara's mouth was dry as sand, but she forced herself to speak clearly. "I have something to show you first," she said. "Look at your ancestors' graves." Confused, people began to look around. One by one, they noticed the small medicine bottles sitting on the tombstones. "What is this?" Chief Adebayo demanded. "Medicine," Amara said simply. "Real medicine made from healing plants. Each bottle has a child's name on it. The ancestors left them here as gifts." "More witchcraft!" someone shouted. "No," said a quiet voice from the back of the crowd. "Not witchcraft." Everyone turned to see Taiwo's mother, Mama Folake, pushing through the crowd. In her arms, she carried a healthy, smiling little girl. "This is my daughter," Mama Folake announced. 3 days ago, she was dying from the fever. Today, she's completely well, all because of Amara's medicine. The crowd stared in shock. They all knew Taiwo's little sister had been near death. "It's a trick," Segun called out. "She was never really sick." But then another voice spoke up. It was old Mama Aduni, carrying her baby son. "My child was sick too," she said. "Amara gave me medicine months ago. I saved some, and when the fever came back, I used it. Look at my son now." She held up a fat, healthy baby who giggled and reached for the crowd. More people began to speak up. One by one, families who had secretly used Amara's medicine stepped forward. They had been too afraid to admit it before, but now they found their courage. "She saved my father's life. Her grandmother's medicines always worked. She never hurt anyone." Chief Adebayo looked confused and angry. This wasn't going the way he expected. "But the fever," he said. "The children who died." "Died because we threw away her medicines," Baba Kofi said quietly. "Died because we listened to fear instead of wisdom." He walked over to one of the graves and picked up a medicine bottle labeled Casey. "This could have saved her," he said, his voice full of regret. "But instead, we let an innocent child die because we were too proud and too scared to accept help." Chief Adebayo stared at the medicine bottle. "How do we know this isn't poison?" Without hesitation, Baba Kofi uncorked the bottle and drank half of it. Then he handed it to Amara. "Because," he said, "I was sick with the same fever last night, and she saved my life." Amara drank the other half of the medicine. Around them, the crowd watched in amazement as the two supposed enemies shared healing medicine like old friends. "The ancestors have spoken," Baba Kofi announced. "They revealed to me that Amara was chosen to be a healer, just like her grandmother. We have wronged an innocent woman, and our pride has cost us the lives of children." For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sounds were birds singing in the trees and the distant flow of the river. Then, slowly, Chief Adebayo walked over to the grave where his own grandson was buried. The little boy had died from fever just 2 months ago. On the tombstone sat a small bottle of medicine. The chief picked up the bottle and stared at it. His hands were shaking. If this had existed then, he whispered. "If we had listened to wisdom instead of fear." He looked up at Amara, and she saw tears in his eyes. "Can you forgive us?" he asked. "Can you forgive an old fool who let pride blind him to the truth?" Amara felt her own tears starting to fall. "There's nothing to forgive," she said softly. "We all make mistakes when we're scared. What matters is that we learn from them." Chief Adebayo nodded slowly. Then he turned to face the crowd. "People of our village," he announced, "we have been wrong. Amara is not a witch. She is a healer blessed by the ancestors themselves. From this day forward, she will be welcomed back to our village with honor and respect." The crowd erupted in cheers. Children ran forward to hug Amara. Mothers thanked her for the medicines. Fathers apologized for hunting her through the forest. But the most amazing moment came when the families with sick children began giving them the ancestors' medicine. Within hours, fevers broke, and children began to sit up and ask for food. As the sun set on the Festival of Ancestors, the burial ground was filled with laughter and celebration instead of fear and anger. Children who had been near death that morning were now playing games among the tombstones. Amara sat on the same fallen log where Baba Kofi had first threatened her with a knife. Now the witch doctor sat beside her, grinding healing herbs with a mortar and pestle. "I have a question," he said as they worked. "What's that?" "Would you consider taking on an apprentice? I think it's time I learned some real healing techniques." Amara smiled. "I think my grandmother would like that. She always said, 'Knowledge grows stronger when it's shared.'" As night fell over the village, Amara looked around at the faces of her people, no longer filled with fear and suspicion, but with hope and gratitude. She had escaped from the witch doctor, but more than that, she had helped him escape from his own fear and ignorance. Sometimes, she thought, the most powerful magic isn't found in spells or curses. Sometimes it's found in the courage to help others, even when they've hurt you. Sometimes it's found in the wisdom to admit when you're wrong, and the strength to make things right. The woman who had fled into the forest as a hunted witch had returned as a celebrated healer. But the most important transformation wasn't hers at all. It was the village's journey from fear to understanding, from hatred to hope. And in the burial ground, where the ancestors' spirits watched over them all, the festival continued late into the night, filled with the sound of healing, forgiveness, and new beginnings.